So I wanted to make this video and share my thoughts on the whole Iran revolution happening, if you're aware of it. So far, from what I know, over 50 some thousand people have died, if not more by now. And I made a 4-minute video titled "My Response to Iran Revolution," and I was sharing my thoughts on some people reaching out to me, wondering what my views are on what's happening, everything, because I grew up for 14 years in Iran, and I'll share a little bit of my experience. But I wanted to specifically make this to share a few of like the fundamental problems I see, not just in Iran, but generally in third world countries and even here in America, right? And then some practical solutions that not only has impacted communities and several lives all over the world, but I see if we implement this on a bigger scale, we can start to fix some of these fundamental problems that we see going on everywhere, not just Iran, right? But I want to share my personal experience, and I'll keep it very short. And if you watch it all the way through, then you get the context and then the solutions, and then you can reach out to learn more about it, and we could chat about it. So I was born and raised in Tehran, in Iran, the capital. The first 13, 14 years of my life, then we, through immigration, went to Vienna in Austria, in Europe, lived there about 10 months. Then we came to Houston, Texas in America when I was 14 years old, right? And what's very interesting, I have some family members that love Iran, right? I have friends, they love Iran, they love growing up there, they love everything about it. And then I have some friends and family, total opposite. They hate it, they hate living there, they wanted to escape, and so on and so forth. And for me, I was kind of like in the middle. I didn't hate it and I didn't love it. And what I mean by that is, growing up, I was a very shy kid. Didn't talk to people outside of the only friends I had were the people I went to school with. But when they wanted to always hang out, outside of school, go party, go do all this stuff, I would never go. I always was at home playing video games, hanging out with my mom, my dad. My grandma lived on the second floor where we lived. It was like a 4-story building. Me and my mom and dad were in like the basement, like level 1, but it was like a basement. We didn't really have a functioning window, all this stuff. And then my grandma lived above us. My grandpa lived above her. And then one of my uncle and his family lived on the 4th floor. And, ever since growing up there, my dad enjoyed living up in Iran, growing up there because of his family, right? But my mom, she didn't like growing up there. She didn't like the whole Islam thing. And I was born in a family where the religion was like Zoroastrian, I think how you say it in English. And there's not many Zoroastrians. And when at some point, I guess when the Muslims took over, and the Arabs, Muslims and so forth, they killed a lot of Zoroastrians and so forth. So growing up, my mom didn't have the best relationship with that religion, right? But growing up, I have friends from all sorts of religions, all sorts of backgrounds. I didn't really care about religion. I was never religious. I was like, I just looked at each individual, who they are. Do I like their values? Common sense, yes, no. And I'll hang out with them. Even to this day, I have friends from all cultures, all backgrounds, religions, faiths, all that. But so because I didn't really go out there, didn't really party, didn't really spend money on anything. Growing up, my dad was making like $17 if you convert it to US dollars. If you convert it to how much dollar is worth now with the currency there, it's not even really worth anything, honestly. And probably a couple dollars, my dad was making a month. But on the other hand, going to school, it was a very negative experience, because my teachers, there were these men, angry men. About 80% of them, 20% of the teachers were cool. And even here, about 20% of teachers are cool. The rest, it's like angry men. The amount of times I saw my friends get hit, like literally smacked, punched with metal rulers. They would smack us like on our wrist. And I never really got punished as much, because I was like always like my mouth was shut. I'm like, fuck, I don't want to get hit. But I saw so many of my friends get hit, and I always wondered, like, what kind of education is this? And one of the main problems I want to bring up that led to this whole revolution, and And obviously people are looking at it from the political aspect, like the people that came in power, how they ran things, the leadership, the corruption. Obviously a lot of people are sharing that. I'm just bringing a different perspective. Not that I don't agree with all that stuff, but I want to bring the perspective I see that's literally number one biggest problem in this world. And there's a lot of problems. There's starvation, hunger, different diseases, people dying, AIDS, all this problems, right? But the number one biggest problem that it all comes to is the problem of education. Now, when I say education, I used to think of it as like school. You think of education, you think of school, teachers, but really think about it. Real education is how you communicate with another human being. How does money work? Where does money even come from? Why do we even have money, right? Taxes, all that stuff, right? Relationships. Why are we, half the population doesn't know how to keep relationship, don't know how to keep the proper marriage. The most people don't even know how to meet a wife, right? Like for me, if it wasn't for my mentors and the groups I got introduced to and the tools they introduced me to, I would have never been able to reprogram how I saw things in my physical body to then be able to get into a relationship and now being married and all this stuff. And so for me firsthand, I saw that problem of education. As I started getting educated more, I started moving out, got a really nice place. In my early 20s, by age 22, I owned a $100,000 car. In my mid 20s, made over $1 million in sales. Like all these things came because of the education. And what's funny is a lot of my family members, like cousins and so forth, they're in their 30s, some are 40, and they still live with their mom, with their parents. Some of them are even married, live with their parents, right? And a lot of people say it's a cultural, like Middle Eastern. The guy stays with the parents for, 20, 30 years old. They think it's a culture, but I really see it as it's an education problem because no one properly educated us on what it takes to move out, what responsibilities we're supposed to take, like none of that stuff, right? And I know many people may hate me or, say negative things about this, but it's just the truth. Like if you look at it, like you could say negative stuff all you want. I just look at the practical point, and everything I'm sharing, I see it not even in just Iran again. It's like all over the world. I see that point of education, politics, so on and so forth. And throughout then my life, so when I left Iran with my family, came to America when I was about 19 years old, I got introduced to some mentors, super helpful people. They saw potential in me I didn't even see. And then they introduced me to certain tools, technologies, and so forth that essentially helped me to go into my pre-programming and fundamentally change who I was, how I was thinking. They helped me with the tools of how to reprogram trauma, how to remove trauma and replace it with strong foundation. And it's way beyond journaling or NLP, hypnotism. Like it's way beyond all that stuff. And I know friends in a lot of these fields, right? But what I'm sharing is way beyond that. And if you're watching this, again, I'm even making this for those who see the bigger problems in this world, but actually want to do something about it. Whether you want to change something fundamentally for yourself personally, maybe you want to do it for your family, you want to do it in your community. And for those who want to have a bigger impact worldwide, then reach out. I'm making this video to find those people. For those who see the problem, who agree that the education leads to that point. Because again, back to how I was growing up in the school that I grew up in, I could see each of us in those classrooms were becoming angrier and angrier every single year, angry at our teacher, angry at our dean. It's like as if these people wanted to torture us. So it's like we grew up with this frustration, anger, hatred. And then when you add something like the politics and the current people in the leadership, then it's like it just boils over. Like everyone just then explodes in anger, and that's how revolution starts, and so on and so forth. But if you go fundamentally, one family at a time, in a home, educate ourselves, and if you're a parent, educate yourself as a parent, because your kids learn from you, and then we educate our children. Again, in the communities I'm a part of, we have children as young as 2-3 years old already reading at a first grade level. Insane. We have conversations with 4 or 5 year olds, and what they share, there's more common sense in what they share than most 40-year-olds I've talked to. It's insane. And it's like, how could we not change the system and make it where it's best for everyone if we don't have more educated people that just see the common sense in everything and have the education, so we get in charge of power, but then use the power to distribute food, distribute power, electricity, internet, and not abuse it, right? Because the starting point of the people in power is not best. And guess what? I know a lot of people in power, and they're just so busy every day that they can't even think of any solution. So it's on you and I to stand up as a group, as a community, and educate ourselves with the right tools that, if you're interested, reach out to me, I'll introduce, so we could fundamentally change these points. So if anything I've shared, obviously I could keep talking forever, but that's literally the biggest point I see in everything going on, is that lack of education point that leads to anger, frustration. And I totally feel for people who are doing the revolution, because if I was in their shoes, I would be doing the same thing, because I'm like frustrated of like, why am I living in a world where everything seems to be against me? Like, that just doesn't make sense. It's just abuse of life, right? And we're not meant to be so dumbed down. And again, a lot of people in Iran, they're very intelligent, very smart. I have so many friends, geniuses, but they're so suppressed and limited in their ability to create just based on where they live, right? And so if you see those same problems and you want to do something about it, you want to hear more about what I'm sharing, the groups, the tools that we have access to, I put my links to my Instagram, Facebook, that's where I'm most responsive, in the comments and in the description, so you could easily find it. DM me. You could even DM the word change, and then we could talk more about the tools. And if you want to help yourself, reprogram yourself to actually create more financially, relationship-wise, even health-wise, reach out. Let's chat. I'm looking forward to hearing from you, and leave your thoughts in the comments. If you watch this far, I know a lot of people, 80% or something of people who watch my videos, they're not subscribed. So just subscribe, like, share it with someone else that you see also is confused or stuck or in that same point. And if this created clarity for you, I'm pretty sure it can do the same for them. So let's get together and let's change this world.